Please turn to page 160, 161. I will walk you through how to brainstorm with students about information. And when I talk about brainstorming, so many times we think brainstorming in which we just put information all over the paper. I'm going to ask you to shift that type of brainstorming so that you add a couple of skills to it, so you're going to give students a higher level of thinking when they brainstorm, and also a way to organize their information so they can actually use it. Too many times I would brainstorm with students and information would be all over the board, and then they were wondering, how do I take all that information and turn it into writing? Well, they were right. When we brainstorm, should take what they give us freely. They should be expressing all their ideas, but we should show them how to, and in this case, when you're brainstorming, how to categorize the information. When you brainstorm, you can freely brainstorm all your ideas, but you want to start to categorize them together. And when you categorize them together, you need to then ultimately come up with the big ideas. And what are the big ideas? That is going to be for a paragraph, the topic sentence. What's the main idea about this information? This brainstorming technique that I'm about to show you will work at any grade level. Whether you're in kindergarten through 6th grade, I can take this activity. The children will be telling the information that they know, and I will be showing them how to categorize and organize it on the paper. At first, I will start making the categories. Once I have several different words written up on the board and in categories, then when students give me more information, I will ask them, where should I put that up on our brainstorm? So that they now are having to categorize the information. So we are going to take our brainstorm, categorize all the information the kids give, and also put big ideas up above each one of those categories, which will ultimately be topic sentences. Let's walk through a brainstorm. On page 160, you don't have the finished brainstorm, but it's close. We will begin with the brainstorm at the beginning levels all the way through when we're finished with all the information the students know recorded up on this paper. The students have reviewed all the information that they know about spiders. I may have my whiteboard with the word spiders written on the top, as well as a spider drawn on the board. Or I could have this on a piece of paper, and in my document camera, I'm having the kids see the information. It really doesn't matter. What I want the children to do is tell me everything they know about spiders, and I'm going to record that on this sheet. Ultimately, when we do the brainstorming, most especially as we hit late 2nd grade and above, the students will start with a blank piece of paper and organize it with me. From there, as the year goes on, they will brainstorm in table groups on big pieces of butcher paper to finally partners or independently on their own piece of paper about information that they've learned. Let's walk through this process. I have my spider, I have the word spiders up there. First thing I do is I tell them, boys and girls, before we even brainstorm everything we know about spiders, we know, woo, 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 the redundant police could come and visit us when we write about spiders. So we need many different ways in order to say the word spiders. We don't want to keep repeating ourselves through our writing. So look at all your information, talk to the people at your table, tell them all the different ways that we could say the word spiders, from a pronoun to different synonyms. Ready? Go. The kids are talking with each other, sharing their ideas, and then, as you can see, we brainstormed up on our board creatures, predator, invertebrate, arachnids, living things. We have all these different ways that we can refer to the word spider. After that, I tell them, now I'm going to have you tell me everything that you know about spiders. Here's the interesting point that I'm going to make to you. So many times students tell us details, and that's fine. We want to brainstorm from what the children give us. We don't want to say, no students, please tell me the big idea first, then we'll brainstorm underneath that. In order for a child to give you a big idea, they have to have a grasp of all the information, group it together in their brain, and come up with a big idea. That's why they typically don't. Many times they'll just tell you all these different facts that don't go together, and in this case, about spiders. That's why we just brainstorm and group together these different details so that they can quickly brainstorm all the details they know, but we're going to organize them by details that go together. Let's look. As you can see, we had some students talk about how there are finger-like glands on the spider, that their abdomen has a thick liquid inside. Those two went together, so I wrote those up on our brainstorm together. Then over here we had, someone was talking about, remember when they were eating that insect that they would vomit on it and the enzymes would cover the insect and start making it dissolve so that they could eat it? Oh, well, that doesn't go over here with these two ideas. I'm going to put that in another area. And then another student started to talk about webs and how spiders will spin webs and how there's a trapdoor spider. So I put that over here in another part because it didn't go with this information. And then another student started talking about when spiders are first born, they're in the embryonic stage. So I put that in another spot. So as you can see, when they give me information, I start categorizing it. Now, as they give me information, I will ask them, where would that go? Does the new information belong in one of our areas that we already have on the board? Or do I need to write that detail somewhere else on the paper because it doesn't belong with these? We are instilling in the students the ability to tell everything they know about spiders while simultaneously organizing it in like abilities. That's what's critical, so that we don't have a brainstorm paper with all types of information mixed up all over the place. Instead, we want children to be able to say all this information they know, but simultaneously organizing it in like categories. So when their brainstorm is done, they have a better tool to use for their writing than just something that has writing all over the place. Because so many teachers have learned in the past, when you freely brainstorm up on the board, the writing ends up becoming disjointed and mixed details are all over the place. And we know that when you have informational writing, you need to have a topic sentence and the details need to be about the topic sentence. So it needs to be organized. Our brainstorm is going to do that. Metacognitively, what this does to students is it not only helps them freely brainstorm their ideas, but it also helps them understand how they go together. How when you are freely brainstorming, you should then, so that you can hold on to these ideas, start connecting them, almost like in little pockets. If you notice on our page here, we have these places where the information goes that is information that's like information. They're like pockets that you are putting the information into in your brain. If you are trying to remember ideas, each individual idea on its own, that becomes very difficult. Now you're taking ideas and putting them into groups, which means that you're not only going to be organized, you're going to be able to hold on to that information. We also know from Marzano, Pickering, and Pollock that similarities and differences is one of the #1 strategies to raise achievement levels in your classroom. This is exactly what we are doing here. We are taking ideas and grouping them together by their similarities. And we are also just keeping them in groups so that the differences, the ones that don't belong, go in other groups. In other words, we are using a high-level strategy of thinking connected to our brainstorming process. Let's move on and see how the students have given me more information, but they are going to tell me which category I'm going to put that information in. Wow, they gave me a lot of information. Notice here, finger-like glands, our abdomen, thick liquid, small holes, they squeeze out that liquid into a thin, long, strong line. Down here we had vomit enzymes, liquefy prey, filter solids, suck up the solids. We have different types of spiders here. Over here we're having the life cycle. Now they're giving me information and they're adding on to the categories that they notice that are on the board. Notice also we have our spider, and our spider parts have been labeled and the function of those parts have been labeled. We are developing many ideas on this page. But again, notice we have all kinds of details. Once you have many details, then you're ready to box the big idea. What are you ready to do, everybody? Box the big idea. Let me show you what I mean by that. We have many groups of information recorded on our brainstorm. We're ready to box the big idea. That's right. Once we have all this information down, we need to have some big ideas, and we're going to box them. Let's go up here to the corner. Let's box this list of information. That means we have two boxes side by side. The first box is subject. Who or what is this information about? The second box is what's the big idea about the subject? What are we telling about the subject? So I'm going to go through our list, and I notice, let's see, this is about spiders that spin webs to trap insects. And then we have spiders that are wanderer spiders that wander around and hide underneath leaves to attack their prey. We have trapdoor spiders that build burrows, pop out, and they capture their prey. Who or what is the subject in this information? Spiders. I will go over to my next box and I have to figure out, I'm telling about spiders, but what's the big idea? What information am I telling about spiders in this list? I have to decide the question that I'm going to ask, the metacognitive question I'm going to ask, is going to depend on how this information is organized. So, if this information, these details, have to be in order, they have to stay in a sequence, I will ask one type of metacognitive question versus if these details don't have to go in order. If they don't have to go in order, then I ask a different metacognitive question. In this case, these details about a spider has a web it spins, or maybe a wanderer spider, or a trapdoor spider that builds a burrow. This is about spiders, but this information about them does not have to be in order. So, my metacognitive question that helps take all this information and form it so that it becomes the big idea is going to be, how is all this information the same? So what we're going to do when we have categories, that means the details do not have to be in any sequence. There's no order. They can be in any order. Then to get the big idea, you're going to read the details. A spider spins its web to trap insects. Some are wanderers, hide and attack insects. Some build burrows to pop out and capture insects. How is all this information the same? What we're doing there when we say that is we are having the children go from these specific details to a generalization. When you have categories, the information doesn't have to be in order, then you generalize to get to the big idea. That means you're getting back up to the whole. These are the parts, and you're going back up to the whole by generalizing. Children have a difficult time generalizing, so this is what I suggest. You should say, they spin webs to catch their prey, or they wander and hide under leaves to catch their prey, or they build burrows to catch their prey. Burrows, the leaf, the web, how are all those the same? What are those things? Are they their food, or are those their habitats, their homes that they live in? Oh, it's their home, their habitat. That's how they're the same. So notice, you give two choices if children have a difficult time generalizing. And sometimes you need to give examples so they understand what you mean. So over here, I may draw a house for habitat or write habitat. After that, I need to finish up my big idea. Why do they have all these habitats? What do they use these habitats for? Let's see, to spin a web to trap the spider in the web, to attack the spider by hiding and attacking the spider underneath a leaf, by jumping out from the burrow to capture the spider. How are all those things, trapping, attacking, hiding, capturing, how are all those things the same that the spider is doing? Is that what they look like, or is that how they hunt for their prey? Oh, hunt for their prey. So these different spiders have different habitats because they use those to hunt their prey. We had all our details, and then we went back up to form our big idea, which will ultimately be a topic sentence. We will then go through each one of these groups in order to come up with a big idea. So we will then have all different big ideas for these groups. Let's jump down here to the next one. Here we have our information: embryonic, larval, nympho-imaginal. I think we have all kinds of information here. Let's box the big idea. Who or what is this information about? When we're talking about the embryonic, the larval stage, the nympho-imaginal stage, who or what is that all about? Oh, it's about spiders. So again, I'm going to write spiders. What's this information about? Well, before I ask the metacognitive question, I have to look at the details and say, boys and girls, do these details have to go in order, or can they go in any order? Embryonic stage, larval stage, nympho-imaginal stage. Can they go in any order, or they have to go in order? Oh, they have to go in order. I will have my metacognitive question that I ask the details to get to the big idea. This question is when the information has to be sequenced, and that is, what happens to spiders when they go through the embryonic stage, the larval stage, and the nympho-imaginal stage? Oh, they change, or they go through their life cycle. That's what happens here. So I'm going to put life cycle and change. So I'm just putting some ideas here. Notice up above we had categories. These details didn't have to go in order. So my prompt was, how are these details the same? I read them: spider web, wanderer under a leaf, building a burrow. How are those the same? Those are their homes, their habitat. Here, the details had to be in order. So I said embryonic stage, larval stage, nympho-imaginal stage. What happened to the spider in this information? Oh, they went through their life cycle. So when you're looking at details, it's critical that you see whether or not they're in order or not in order. Let's now look at a finished brainstorm. On our finished brainstorm, notice in this group of information we had, who or what is this about? The spinnerets on a spider. And what is this information telling us about the spider? And then we looked at the information. The finger-like glands in the abdomen is a thick liquid, small holes, they squeeze it out to make the silk, which is a thin, long, strong line. Let's look at these details. Can they be in any order, or do they need to be in order? Oh, they need to be in order. So what happened here? And we said the spinnerets make silk. Let's go down to the bottom. Who or what is this information about? Spiders. Oh, they vomit enzymes on their prey. It liquefies it. Then they filter it up and then it turns the solids into a liquid and they suck it up. Does this information, can it go in any order, or does it have to stay in order? It has to stay in order. So what happened in this information? They were drinking their food. So in the middle, we have the spider with all its parts labeled and the function of its parts. This is when we're describing the information. So whenever you have a subject, like in this case, a spider, I always start off with a picture of it because the kids are going to start telling you the parts of it. And when you have the parts, like fangs, what do the fangs do? They inject a poison. We go and we label the different parts and the function. Up above our big idea, notice it doesn't have two boxes. Instead, it has spiders with an equal sign. And then I'm giving a definition or an overall picture of what a spider is. And that is, spiders are arachnids with 2 body parts and 8 legs. That's for more descriptive type of writing. We have many groups of information on our organizer for us to use to take to our writing lessons. This means I can actually cut these different parts of the organizer into little squares, and we can use each square at a time for different writing lessons. That means that this could ultimately become 5 different pieces of writing, meaning our book on spiders could have 5 chapters. We have taken a brainstorm and we've used this so that you are not only going to have all the ideas they've learned, but you're teaching children how to think, how to group them together and create the big ideas, so that when you go to write information, they've done so much of the thinking and organizing on their brainstorm. And look at how many different pieces of writing we're going to have. So notice on my brainstorm, I have informational writing, but I have it organized Over here in a sequence, down here was a sequence, up here on the top, this was categories, and in the middle, we have descriptive writing. I have all the different ways to organize writing here. Not that it will always come out that way, but look how we have these different types of writing for information, different organizational patterns that we can use to write about, and in this case, spiders. One other piece that I want to tell you is when you are writing information, if you have a description of the subject, that has to be done first if you're making a book. That has to be chapter 1. Because whenever you're introducing information, a description always comes first because it gives the reader background about the subject before you go into any information about the subject. So if I was writing about spiders, then I would probably have to go into my descriptive writing first so that the kids could understand how to write a description and put that in chapter 1 of their book. Or I could do this later, but we would place it in chapter 1. Just know that description always goes first when you're giving information if you have a booklet on, in this case, let's say spiders. Then we would choose one of these other big ideas to write a chapter about. And again, that would become a paragraph. Or if you have children who can write more about that specific subject, it could become a multiple paragraph piece of writing. You could differentiate from one paragraph to multiple paragraphs because the organizer can be used that way. Back in your book on page 160, 161, you've been following along on your organizer so that you had your big ideas and recorded information about spiders. So in this case, you should have your big idea boxes filled in, showing the different topic sentences for this different groups of information. Notice on the opposing page, I have cards that you could cut out and you could show to the students when you're discussing whether the information needs to be put in order or not in order. And I have the metacognitive questions that you ask once you decide how the information needs to be organized. For example, up here on our organizer, we said in the top corner, this was about spiders. Then I said, this is about their webs, how they have leaves for their homes or a burrow for their home. Does this information need to be in order or it doesn't have to be in order? Oh, it didn't have to be in order. So then notice what I would ask. I would go back and say, a web, the leaf, the burrow. How is all this information the same? And that's where we're going to generalize. You give the two choices and you write homes so that they can catch their prey. You have all your boxes that you should have filled in. These cards help you with the details and the metacognitive questions. If it needs to be in order, what happened in this information? What did the spider do in all this information? What happened to the spider in all this information? Or how is all this information the same? So these are your cards that you could use to show the students once they identify if the information doesn't have to be in order or does have to be in order. You will show the card and ask the metacognitive question in order to form the big ideas. I hope you enjoy the brainstorming that I have shown you so that your kids are more proficient in organizing their ideas, how to think about grouping them and forming big ideas. Next, we will go into our stages of writing where they will focus on specific steps in order to write out their information. And our goal is for them to master those steps so that they can independently write on their own. Let's get started.